Hey everyone, welcome to the Happy Flosser podcast. My name is Billy Lunt. I am your host, and I'm here to talk to you about all things dental hygiene to support you on your journey through the dental hygiene program. It's really great to have you with us today. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Cris Duval. Oh my gosh, you guys are just going to love Cris. Cris comes to this conversation with just so much knowledge. I don't think I have enough time in 100 episodes to touch on all the topics that I'd love to talk to Cris about. And you can learn more about her in the show notes, but you're just going to really value this conversation with Cris. So, Cris, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, Billy, thank you. This is so much fun.
Thanks. And you have so much to share with our students, but I think the best place to start is to say, do you remember what it was like when you first became a dental hygienist?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do I ever? I graduated well before most of your students were even born. Don't make me tell the year. But, I was, I graduated at the top of my class, but that's not the important thing. The important thing was I thought I knew all the answers to everything because I could ace the test like you can't believe. My dad was a motivational speaker, and he taught me different strategies of how to remember, facts and data. So I thought I was going to be able to just breeze through being a hygienist because it's all about technique, right? I thought it was all about whether or not I could effectively get that calculus off of teeth and show them how to brush and floss. And I was going to be able to achieve my goal, which was to save the world from periodontal disease one patient at a time. But the interesting thing was, and I look back on it now and it really makes me laugh, while I thought I knew the answers to everything, what I really needed to do was to learn how to ask new questions of myself and of my patients. So that was a real awakening for me, was you don't know it all and you better get this figured out here real quick. And that it took quite a few years to get that figured out. So
yeah, it's pretty scary when you first leave the guidance of your faculty and you get out there in the real world and try to figure out, okay, how do I take everything I learned and apply it to better my patients? So tell me about how that transition occurred for you and what was some of the real quick lessons you learned?
Oh boy, I think the biggest lesson for me was don't assume you know why a patient is asking a question, because there's probably 100 different reasons why. And, when I finally got to the point where I figured out I needed to say, that's a great question. Tell me why you asked that. Or, when a patient would say, how long is this appointment going to take? Well, I assumed it was all about time, or that they needed to be out. They just wanted to know what time they were going to be out. And half the time when I assumed that, I was wrong. And so I think it's really important that you know exactly why a patient is asking a question. And you could adopt the philosophy of, like, my last boss, and this drove me crazy in the beginning. But when I finally understood why he did it, it made perfect sense to me. And that what he did was he would answer my question with a question. And essentially, that's what I learned. oops, sorry, I learned how to do was to answer the patient's question with a question. Can we break for just a second?
Oh, absolutely.
Check this out.
Oh, we have a guest on the podcast, and who is this guest?
This is Ginger. She is a little Shih Tzu that I adopted about 5 months ago. And
Oh,
she totally enriches my life, but she is hasn't been socialized that you don't bark at people. So she's learning though. Sorry.
I'm sure she's in good hands.
Yeah.
Um, Cris, interesting. At the last full-time job I had working in private practice, I worked with a dentist who answered every question I had with another question. I learned so much from him.
Exactly. And that's one thing I think that your students, as they embark into the real world, is um, go out there with an attitude that you're going to learn, because really, not to knock any hygiene school, but really what they're doing is preparing you to practice dental hygiene. And when you practice, you learn things that you can do differently and do better, and will help your patients have a much better outcome. And really everything you want to be doing and the questions that you want to be asking are those that really reflect the science of today. Um, I know a lot of hygienists still ask the question, do you brush and floss and how often?
Mm.
And that to me is a nonsense question, because I'm not that concerned about when somebody brushes or flosses. What I want to know is the question, and it's not really a question, but I say it's a question. Tell me about when your gums bleed,
Mm.
because you want to know that answer, because then you know what your strategy is going to be of how you can mitigate that bleeding and what it means and what it does to your oral systemic health. So that's really a critical thing to know about your patients. And so, yeah, that's one of my.
That tells you so much, just that little shift tells you, and the patient isn't prepared for that question. They're expecting you to ask about their brushing and flossing habits. I don't think they're ready for you to ask them, tell me about when your gums bleed. I think that all by itself, that surprise factor might be a really great way to lead the conversation.
Absolutely. And, you're there to help mitigate their risk factors that are on their health history. And bleeding is huge. We now know that when your gums bleed, even a tiny little bit, that inoculates some very harmful pathogens into your vascular system. And they do there exactly what they do on your gums and in your mouth, is that they create inflammation. And you don't want inflammation in your vascular system. You want to be have a low inflammatory marker in your mouth and in the rest of your body. So that's really important to know.
Yeah. So I know that when students are in school, they are taught all of the ideal ways of managing patient care, doing risk assessments, and really putting comprehensive care together. How do you think, what would your advice be to those new graduates when they go out to form themselves into that healthcare professional that they need to
Well,
be?
it took me many years to figure this out, but I've got a simple formula.
Oh, I
What
love that. Simple is good.
Yeah, it is. And you can look at your patient's health history, which is going to tell you a lot, if they have heart disease or if they're diabetic or without them even walking into your operatory, you're going to know one thing. And that's what I used to determine what I was going to do and how I was going to talk to a patient. And that thing is this patient living in the danger zone? Because that's what I want them to start to become, is specialists that are risk mitigation managers. I want them to be able to figure out, both from talking to their patient and from their health history, which patient is going to sit in my chair today that is living in what I call that danger zone. And then from there, once they know if that patient's in the danger zone, how am I going to shift them into the safety zone? And that's really pretty easy if you just look at it from there, you know.
That's a black and white focus right there.
Yeah. And, you know, I can give them some ways to find out. Well, let me back up.
Okay.
So they're a risk mitigation manager. So they're a risk manager. They're going to manage the risks, help the patient manage the risk. The other thing they're going to do is I want them to think about becoming a value hunter. Because you want to know what your patient values, because what we know is patients buy what they value, right?
That's right.
It's like if you go to a used car dealership and they try and sell you a Volkswagen and you want a Lexus or whatever, you know, don't talk to me about what I don't want. Tell me about, help me get what I want. And so I would ask a very new and different question of my patients, because not only once I knew their risks, I wanted to know what they valued so that it would be an emotionally moving enough experience to make them decide, I better do what Billy recommends because I don't want to have this risk in my body. And so what the value question is I would say, as we're walking back to my operatory, tell me about something great in your life. And I never once had anybody say, oh, I took a big check to the bank or, you know, whatever. It was always about, I just got married. I had my first grandchild born, or my wife has just been put in remission from cancer, or I get to move back to be close to my parents. I'm so excited about that. And so when you know what that person values, you can frame your conversation to them about what you recommend to get them out of the danger zone and into the safety zone, so that, because you told me that you have a new grandchild being born, and that we have also discovered that you'd like to be alive and healthy to see that child grow up. So here's what I'm going to recommend for you. I'm going to recommend you do some pathogen testing and see if you've got some pathogens that are impacting the bleeding that's going on in your mouth and your perio, or I mean, whatever your focus is for that day. And with that patient, it makes it a very simple conversation, and you get to find out what they value, so you can go directly there. You don't have to make any assumptions.
Yeah, and that really speaks to that patient, and then they probably feel like you heard them, you know?
Absolutely. You see, one thing about I learned a long time ago is that the more you know about your patient, the more they think you know about dentistry.
Oh, interesting connection, Cris.
Yeah. So it's really important that if you want to, if your focus is on patients first and helping them become healthy and well, and that's our job. You know, we are so lucky there is no one in healthcare that has the opportunity that we do to spend as much time with a patient as a hygienist. What a gift
It
that is
is.
for us. You know,
It
what
is.
if they only gave us 10 minutes like some physicians get? You know, what could we learn about our patients and how could we impact and influence um, patients without that amount of time? And what I'm recommending, anything that I recommend, you don't have to take more time to do it.
Mm,
All you have to do is change your approach to time.
mm.
And so it became very easy. And unfortunately for me, I didn't figure this out until after 20 some years of being a hygienist. You know, I just burned out. I was done. My favorite song at that time was Take This Job and Shove It. I'm not working here no more.
Oh, sometimes you have to fall down in order to be able to get back up.
Yes. And when, you know, anytime your students have that point where they fall down, my recommendation is to uh, get up, figure out who you're going to be for your patients, and then step into that new pair of shoes
Yeah.
and leave the old stuff behind that wasn't working anymore. And I think that's one of the challenges of hygienists and hygiene in general is that we are such creatures of habit. You know, we do the same thing over and over all day long. And we get ourselves into a place where we keep doing things that aren't working anymore.
Yeah.
And you cannot move on until you um, get rid of that stuff that isn't working. It has to open up space for doing something new. So get rid of the old and bring in the new. Are you familiar with that model that's is called start, stop, continue?
Oh, share that with me. I love that.
Oh, well, uh, there's a guy out that developed this model, and he says if you want to change something, start doing something new, and then stop doing something new, or stop doing something that isn't working, and then continue to do that which does work. Well, I disagree. And the experts say that it shouldn't be that way, that we should stop. First of all, we should stop doing what isn't working to create space for that which is new and is going to be working better. There's a fabulous book out there. I don't know if it's necessarily for your students at this time, but you might give it to some of the dentists that they're going to be working for. It's called Necessary Endings
Oh,
by Dr. Henry Cloud. And he just says, you know, we continue to do what isn't working over and over again because our brain tells us that it's a safer place to be instead of having to figure out what to do that's new and that what is working better. So and we just clutter up our mind with a lot of stuff that isn't working. It's, I think, that insanity statement where you do things over and over even though it isn't working. So yeah, you know, work on classifying your patients as who's in the danger zone. Do what you can to shift them. Recommend protocols and procedures that'll help shift them from the danger zone into the safety zone. And as you're about to do that, find out what they value by being that value hunter. Start
yeah.
asking that question. Tell me about something great in your life. It
Yeah.
really, really makes a difference.
Thank you, Cris. That is just all such great advice for actually anyone at any stage in their career. What I will
Yes.
say is one of the early issues students have when they graduate and they get out there, it not only just the time, but in school they're required to take radiographs on their patients and people come in and there's never any pushback on radiographs. I think radiographs are the first thing that they struggle with, where all of a sudden now they have a patient in their chair and they go to take radiographs and the patient says, no, I'm not having those today. It seems to be their first hurdle of a little bit of resistance. And some of these tips that you've given, really, I think they can use those right out of the gate when they first graduate to really have those open conversations with patients to figure out where that's coming from. But this is something that they've never experienced before, because in school they have requirements. The patients come in willingly for them. Now all of a sudden they're faced with a situation for the very first time where they have a patient resisting a treatment that's standard of care for them. And so that's usually one of the first hurdles they hit.
Yes, and remember, if you need to, write it down and post it up somewhere, that the more you know about your patient, the more they think you know about dentistry, and they're more than willing to take your advice. And one of the things you need to know about your patient in order to achieve that is you need to know what their motivators are. So when you know what's important to them in the life, find out what their motivators are. And I'll give you an example of just exactly what you were talking about. I had a patient that came in and he goes, I don't want x-rays today. And I said, well, tell me more about that. He said, I don't have time for you to take x-rays today. And what I knew from him is that he valued our expertise and he wanted quality care. And so I said to him, and I said, well, tell me more about why you don't have time. And he said, I've only allotted an hour for this appointment, which I was told it would only take an hour. And so I have to be out of here right at 3 o'clock. And I said, great. If I can guarantee you'll be out of here at 3 o'clock, will you allow me to take x-rays? Because I know how important our judgment and expertise is to you. And without x-rays, Dr. McKay and I cannot give you quality care and see, what's going on in your mouth. That could be things that are impacting your general health and wellness. And as long as I could do that, he was fine. But it goes back to asking questions and don't assuming you know why the person doesn't want x-rays today. It may be, I've heard something about x-rays not being good for us. Well, you can address that in a way that particularly meets what their motivators are involved in. And if your students would like to have the sheet that we had patients fill out that I used extensively to determine what patients' motivators are, I'm happy to share that with your students. So just let me know. Yeah. And we also asked several different questions about, do you prefer to talk about in terms of the way things have been or the way things are now? You just, do you want the discussion to be about what your insurance will manage, or what about you're willing to invest in on your own behalf? So there's lots of ways to find out this information that will help streamline the time that it takes to, do all this.
Yeah.
So,
Cris, you're just a wealth of knowledge.
I look back on it and I'll tell your students, I had the huge fortune of, after 28 years, being burned out. And like I said, I couldn't stand to do it one more day. But then I knew I had to go back, and I decided I was going to find a dentist who had maybe a little bit different view about what he valued and how he wanted his patients cared for. And that's when I had come to know Dr. McKay the year before. And he was relentless. That's his favorite word. He was relentless in getting what he wanted for his patients. Yeah. And when you go to interview, that's another thing. when you go to interview with this dentist, you need to be asking him some quality questions too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tell me about what your philosophy of care is. How do you want me to approach your patients? And you
Mm-hmm.
can find out, all I care about from you is get them in, get them out, and, you know, throw a few things into my schedule and we'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you as the new hygienist, as you go out there and it's more important to you to put the patient first and what their needs are, and you can make huge contributions to the health and wellness of the practice,
Mm-hmm.
along with the service that you're doing for your patients. And I want to encourage every single one of the hygienists to pay attention to the oath that you take, what you promise to do when you graduate. And that is to advance the art and science of dental hygiene in relationship to your patient's care. You are obligated as a hygienist, once you take that oath, to do what's best for them, not what's easiest for you. And that's my goal, is to try and bridge that gap between what's best for the patient and the struggles and challenges you have communicating and talking with the patient, and how can I have better served that patient. And yeah,
Yeah.
it when you practice that way, I was never so inspired about hygiene after as many years as I practiced. So
Yeah. Well, it reinvigorates you when you start caring for your patients from your heart.
yes. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It certainly does. And even if they would, your students would like some help um, with verbiage on asking new quality questions, I'm happy to help. I've been around for many years, and my goal is I don't want to leave this earth with one arrow left in my quiver of gifts that I've been given. My goal is to share that um, wisdom, if you want to say that, and enrich anyone I can come across to help them make hygiene much more fun and to bring the joy back into hygiene. And it's no difference between somebody is ending their career and somebody that's just starting it. Like, both of you are going to have some of the same challenges, and this can be so much fun and so rewarding. And so I'm just here to help.
Thank you, Chris. So, how could people get a hold of you? What's the easiest way to get a hold of you if somebody would like to work with you or get some guidance from you?
Email me.
Yeah.
It's Cris without an H, CRIS at thelifeguardapproach.com. And we haven't even talked about why it's called the lifeguard approach. I'd love to explain that story.
Absolutely. You got the stage.
Well, when I was 14, I had been a competitive swimmer for about 6 years, and I was really good. And I won every single race I ever entered. And this one day, it was at our home pool. So I knew the lifeguard that was on duty, and I knew the physician or the person was the timer in my lane was a physician that I knew. And so I swam the race, and as I turned around to wait for the other swimmers to finish and watch that, I leaned against the back of the pool and I blew a great big bubble of bubble gum. I swam that race with 4 pieces of bubble gum tucked underneath my tongue. And unbeknownst to me, the lifeguard got down off of her perch, and the timer in my lane left the lane. And they met me on the way out of the pool, and they asked me if I wanted to live to be an adult. And I thought they were crazy. Well, of course I want to be an adult. But they cared enough about me and were in relationship with me, just like we are a lifeguard overlooking our pool of patients, that they cared enough to come and ask me that question and hopefully impact. They said if I had aspirated that bubble gum during the race, they wouldn't have known what had happened. I probably would have died. I mean, who does that? Swims a race with
A
multiple
14-year-old.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we used to sit around and wait for our race to come up, and we just wanted to, we were always chewing bubble gum, and we wanted to blow big bubbles and and uh and win races. So, you know,
Well, I think it's a great I think it's a great name for what you're trying to accomplish.
yeah.
And honestly, what you're doing for the profession is just there aren't even any words to explain it,
Oh,
Cris.
Unknown caller.
I think your dad left his impact on you with his blessings of being a motivational speaker.
I hope so. I think another thing that hugely impacted me was by the time I was 18, I lost two brothers and my dad. My brothers were each killed in separate childhood accidents, and my dad died from a failed open heart surgery. And I learned at a very young age that life is so fragile and so important that I was going to make the decision that I was going to do anything I can to never have that happen again, which is not realistic because, accidents happen and all of us die at some moment. But it turned me into a person that has a lot of compassion. And the only difference between having empathy for a patient that is suffering or as having, some, like perio problems or some systemic problems going on, the only difference between empathy and compassion is one word, and that word is action. And so my second patient in hygiene school was my husband's grandfather. And I found what turned out to be on him was oral cancer. And I realized that every patient that was going to be sitting in my chair after I graduate was going to have a plethora of people that loved him and cared about him, just like his family, which I was a part of, cared about him. And so I would want any of my family members to be taken care of in the most, I don't even know what the word is, but, take good care of my family members. They're important to me.
Yeah.
And so I realized that purpose, that onus was on me to take care of patients. And so I made the commitment in hygiene school that I was going to do an oral cancer screening on every patient at every visit, no matter what, no excuses. It was a priority because he later, very shortly thereafter, developed colon cancer, which they now say oral cancer should be considered in a differential diagnosis with colon cancer. So, if you're a person that loves and cares about your family, pretend that's one of your family members sitting in the chair every time you sit down to work on a patient. It makes a difference. And I can help your students. The biggest thing that I hear from hygienists is that when I ask them to do oral cancer screenings and screen for blood pressure and do all these things that we should be doing at the beginning of an appointment, I've cracked the code of how to have enough time to do all that. And that's what I hear from hygienists is, hey, I'd love to take care of my patients the way you do, but I just don't have the time. And I made it a priority because I think my own personal opinion is we've never had anybody die from a calculus infection, literally. But
I
we
love
have,
you, Cris.
well, it just, we have got to step up and give more to our patients and help them. I wanted to be able to, when I sent my patient home at the end of an appointment, I wanted to know that when I sent them home, when they walked out the door, that I was sending them home in a much more safer state than when they came into and sat in my chair. And I think that's what hygiene's about. We get to do that.
We
So,
do. We
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to end, Cris. I love, can I just say your authenticity just oozes out of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And
Well, I'd encourage people to get in touch with me. I'm retired clinically, but I'm writing a book and um, I speak and I coach and I just really want to get that message out there and helping new students is the best way I can think of. So,
yeah, the students when they graduate, they're just so full of all of the stuff that you and I are talking about, all of the can do stuff. And they really just need the seasoned hygienist like yourself and myself to say, you can do this.
yeah.
Hold the line about the type of clinician you want to be, and
Yes,
you
but
can make that happen.
yes. And that's my point, though, too, just to what you said, is that line, you got to step across it and make the decision of who you're going to be for your patients, because who you're going to be drives what you're going to do.
Mm.
So if you make the decision, I'm going to be a hygienist that chats and polishes all day and enjoys my patients, and we'll talk about restaurants and where we can go to eat. That's one thing. But if you decide you're going to be that hygienist that really cares about your patient, puts them first, takes care of them, mitigates their risks, and you're going to be a value hunter, you're going to find out what motivates them, you're going to do awesome. And you're going to be such a gift to your patients. And I'm really excited for all your students and who they can be and the change they can bring to the way hygiene is conducted throughout the world. So
I am too, Cris. That's why I keep doing what I'm doing, and that's why you're doing what you're doing. We're
yes,
hopeful for it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time, Cris. This has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I'd like to say one more thing, Billy, before we end. I think that what's important is that everyone in dentistry, and particularly in hygiene, we have to speak the new language of health and wellness. It's not a language about calculus removal. And so when you figured out how to get your patient living in that danger, safety zone, the benefit is I didn't see calculus anymore. And what a gift is that to us hygienists. So I got to focus on, and I had the time, and my patients were eager to come back and see, how they were doing. And it's really cool. So I'm happy to give anybody who would like a copy of the Language in Health and Wellness. It's like a white paper. It's about 11 pages long. But I'm happy to share it. And I go through all the steps that I went through when I got out of hygiene school and up until now, and the things that I've learned. And Yeah. And it'll give, I think it'll give your students a little bit of insight on how to communicate with your boss.
Mm,
You
that's
know,
helpful.
know about your boss. My boss was a high D. He made decisions very quickly. He knew what he wanted. He knew how to make decisions. What he didn't like, which I had to learn very quickly, he didn't like me coming up and saying, I've been thinking. I lost it right there. If I wanted to have his credit card to go buy something for the practice or patients or something, and I used to say, I've been thinking, think it might be kind of nice to do this for our patients. What I learned is I would approach him with, I need your credit card. I'm buying some stuff for the patients. Anything else you need to know? Nope, here's my credit card.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had enough trust in me that he knew I wasn't going to go buy something that we didn't need. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that takes a skill development for sure for some students to really, know how to talk to patients, how to talk to your boss, how to really negotiate things. So thanks for bringing that up,
Absolutely.
Cris.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm happy to.
yeah. Well, it's been
We do
so
this
great.
again.
What's that?
Let's do this again because I
Oh,
have some other stuff I've got to share.
I know, I know. I love our conversation. We'll definitely schedule another time, Cris. Thanks
Okay,
for
that
coming
sounds
on.
absolutely. It's my pleasure. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope this was a beneficial conversation for you. If you need any help on your journey, feel free to reach out with any kinds of questions. You can find the link listed right in the show notes of this episode. I would also appreciate a review if you have time to leave one. You can always leave comments on the show and reach out if there's a topic that you need covered. You have lots of people supporting you on your journey through dental hygiene. Don't be afraid to ask.